Hey there, I'm here today with Terry Bean. Welcome to Business Growth Time. Hey Terry, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Janet. How are you?
I'm really good. I'm excited for our special guest because you brought Lisa on and I was reading about her background and I am very, very impressed. So I'm excited to learn from Lisa and I want you to start out by introducing her since you know her so well.
I will indeed. I'm excited to have her too. She's got some information that I think is absolutely game changing in terms of understanding the type of people you're going to deal with, but we'll let her get into that. This is Lisa Menini with Accelerate Associates. She's not only a best-selling author of the great book Me, Myself, and Why, Secrets to Navigating Change, but she also hosts a radio show that reaches tens of thousands of people with that same title, Navigating Change. So, with all due looking forward to it, Lisa, say hello.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
We're thrilled to have you here. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you
yes,
very much.
welcome.
Good to see you guys.
So, I want to jump right into it, right? You have on your LinkedIn profile, and I've actually seen you speak about it on a couple of occasions, this concept of hard wiring.
Yes.
That is thrilling to me. Can you talk a little bit about that at a real high level, and then we'll just keep digging a little bit deeper and deeper if you're okay with that.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love it because it really opens up people's eyes to how much easier life can be, business can be, just running their whole business can be. Networking, all of it stems from your natural hardwiring, which is part of your biology. And you're born with it. It emerges about 1.5 to 2 years old, and it stays with you your entire lifetime. And when you look at hardwiring, a lot of people think, oh, are you talking about personality or behaviors? Well, there's been a lot of advancements in the field of psychology, and this is what we've learned is that your natural hardwiring is part of your nature, whereas your behaviors are part of your nurture. All those things around you that have nurtured your environment. So, yeah, there's lots of things that nurture our environment, right? Our education, our relationships, all of that, and that will affect our behaviors. But this is something we know. You don't behave the same way that you did when you were 18. How come? Well, because we've learned, we've been influenced by some of these things that have affected that impact us throughout our lives. But
I don't do
your
it because of
hardwiring is
camera
part of your
phones.
nature. Say again?
I'm sorry. I don't behave the same way I did when I was 18 because of camera phones and social media.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
That's a good point.
Exactly. You get that accountability feature now, right?
Glad they didn't have them back when I knew Terry back then.
It's true. Janet and I went to high school, Lisa. I don't know if you knew that. So
She told me that earlier. I know. Wow.
she's got dirt. Not much, but dirt.
Oh,
So, all right. So, nature versus nurture. I'm actually adopted, so I've been familiar with the nature versus nurture argument for a long time, and I think you explained that very, very well. So, the natural side, that hard wiring side, we're kind of programmed with it from the time we're 1.5 to 2. You said.
Yes, you're programmed from 1.5 to 2, and it stays with you your entire lifetime. So let me just give you an example of what hardwiring is. Maybe that we can start there.
Perfect.
So there's lots of different combinations of your hardwiring. In fact, there's one tool on the market today called the Acumax Index, which is the only tool that objectively reports on and measures your natural wiring. And we'll just take one element of it, which is what's called a B factor, or what I like to refer to it as, external thinkers and internal thinkers. Because I think it's really, everybody can see themselves in one of those. And when people talk about behaviors, they often think of extroversion, and that if you're building a business, you've got to be extroverted and you've got to, be a certain way to sell. Sure. And what I say is all you have to do is be yourself, but understand how you are naturally wired and spot the wiring in others. And when you do, when you notice, just notice how other people want to receive their information, you'll be that much more effective in your communication, in your networking, and even your sales. So this affects everything in your business, from how you build it to who you surround yourself with in your team, to networking. And Terry, you're all about networking. You've got thousands of people in your network. So you really get this at a much deeper level too, and how much this will affect your business.
That's a great point, because we bring these tools that we have, but normally from a communications perspective, we communicate from our perspective and our perspective only. We have one way of going about delivering a message, even though there are multiple types of people that are going to receive that message differently.
Right on. Absolutely.
Understanding who they are is great. So that's very, very cool. How many different types of people will the AccuMax Index identify?
Well, you're going to have different factor combinations. You're going to have what's called an A factor, and that's going to determine the amount of autonomy that you naturally need. You're going to have the communication, which is a B factor, the communication, the amount, or rather how you process thought. Now, a lot of people think, there's extroversions and introverts, and they look at, let's just take that one for example, and there's two more. There's the C factor, the patience factor, and the D factor, which is the amount of information that you need. Now, let's, the amount of information that you need. So let's take the B factor, because that's the one that is most pronounced, I think, when you're meeting someone. Now, if you have a high amount of a B factor in your, we call it, in your factor, okay, in your index rather. So let's say you have you're really high on that scale. You like to create ideas by talking aloud, all right, and that's how you process thought, and it's kind of like a live stream, right? You get energized, in fact, by being with people, and in fact, you generate thoughts by talking about them, or you resolve issues by talking about them. So and I call them external thinker just to keep it simple, as an external thinker, that's important to you. In fact, you can go into a room and say, hey, I need to talk to you about this, and you can be going on and on and on, and the person won't say a thing, and at the end of you working through it, they'll say, oh my gosh, great, I've got my answer. And they didn't say a thing. And it's because you naturally needed to talk that through to resolve that particular issue. And you're probably on the high side, so you probably have that external thinker. But the opposite of you is that internal thinker. And that internal thinker processes thought on the inside. So they will not necessarily speak until they've processed their thought. And what's interesting about this is, let's say I'm an external thinker, and I'm talking to an internal thinker, and I get what I refer to as the blank processing stare. And it goes something like this. As an external thinker, let's say I'm talking to an internal thinker, and this is the reaction that I get to what I'm saying to them. It's because it's a blank processing stare. So an external thinker naturally will say, oh, I must not be getting through, and they'll keep talking. I see people do this in sales all the time. The problem with that is as an external thinker, if your audience, if the person you're talking with, networking with, your prospect, is an internal thinker, they're listening to what you are saying and they are processing it. What they need innately is for you to be quiet, to be silent, so they can think about and process what you've said.
Great,
and the
great
more
tips.
the more you start talking, the more you interrupt their thought process. Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes a
Having
lot of sense. I mean, sales, you hear this, I've heard this before. Sales, you need to just shut up sometimes, correct? To be blunt about it. I mean, it's
Well, it depends on
stop.
who your audience is, right? So this is all about noticing how the other person is reacting to you. Now, if I'm a lobby and I'm talking, or an internal thinker, and I'm talking to an external thinker who starts to repeat themselves, that's a cue to say, mm-hmm, I heard what you said. Because as an internal thinker, if somebody's repeating themselves, that simply means that they need the acknowledgement, and you just need to acknowledge what they're saying so that they feel understood and that they feel heard. Because that's important to them, that to get that acknowledgement. The external thinkers need that acknowledgement. So another thing is, you may want to say, I heard what you said. I need some time to think about it. Again, that gives that verbal thinker, or that external thinker, some cues in terms of what you need as an internal thinker.
That makes perfect sense. That makes
Yeah.
perfect sense. It's Lisa, you and I both do a lot of speaking. I know Janet does some as well. I've been up on stage and watching the audience, and that you get that blank processing stare that you were talking about, and you're like, oh my God, this person couldn't be more bored, and they just can't wait till I'm done with this. And they're almost always the first one to come up and say, what a great job afterwards.
Yes, exactly, because that's the way they process thought. They're not going to be shaking their heads. The ones that are going to be shaking, mm-hmm, yep, uh-huh, are the external thinkers, right?
Obviously, I'm external because I do that through the whole show.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely.
I'm always like,
Absolutely.
oh yeah,
Exactly. And external thinkers, by their nature, get energized by face-to-face interaction. They get energized by it. In fact, after networking, they almost have to come down from that networking event because they are so energized by it. That's simply the way external thinkers get their motivation.
It's really interesting you say this because Terry and I, when we talked about doing the podcast, I said I have to have it visual too. Partly because I'm a big YouTube fan and I believe in video big time, but secondly because I feel like a podcast, and you have a radio show, correct? So that's so you're used to being able to talk to people without the visual.
Right.
But I just feel like it brings, and it might be that external in me, but it brings it to a whole new level when we can see versus
Absolutely.
just the listen.
Absolutely. The internal thinkers, they get energized by being in their thoughts. That's why when after a meeting, you have a meeting, you got all your external thinkers or who are thinking aloud, and the internal thinkers go away, they think about what happened in the meeting, and their best ideas about an hour after the meeting, after they have had time to process the thought. And this is a really great meeting tip in the value that an organization can have, because high B's crystallize at the meeting. They're crystallizing their thoughts at the meeting as they're thinking about it, whereas low, that internal thinker needs to think about it, and it may take a few moments. So the thing you may want to consider is, how do you include those internal thinkers after the meeting so that they get input? And that could be simply about how you structure your meetings. Maybe you have a mini meeting afterwards, or some way for them to communicate their thoughts after the fact, to really get everybody's input from that meeting.
That's great. Is there a way to get people that are on opposite sides of that spectrum to respect and appreciate the differences and see the value that each side brings? Because I can see how an external thinker would annoy the living tar out of an internal thinker, and the opposite's probably true as well.
It is. It absolutely is, Terry, because the internal thinker is saying, okay, I just need a minute to think. I need you to stop talking now. Whereas the external thinker might be saying, what's that internal, what are they thinking? I don't know. They're not telling me. Can this person be trusted? So it's funny when I go into organizations and there's trust issues or leadership issues, and we start looking just at how people are naturally wired, their indexes, and we do all of their indexes. The nods that I get, the acknowledgement that they then understand, especially at an organizational level, just how important this is in improving their productivity, improving teamwork, improving their profitability. All of those factors get increased when people really understand, and to your point, Terry, value that people's hardwiring is neither good nor bad. It just is. And when you understand it at this level, it makes a world of difference for everybody.
That's great. That's absolutely great. I can see how impactful that is just from even just your own team. Heck, even just your own family. If
Yeah.
nothing else, if you just understood it at that level and can practice it there. So
Yes.
you mentioned the AccuMax Index. Is there a resource or a tool where people can go and take this index? Is it on the web somewhere?
Yeah, I actually have several programs. One of them is the Wired to Win program that I have. That's coming up in I think we have one coming up in June, and they can go to my website accelerateassociates.com. You know, and to your point, and also when organizations are interested in bringing it in, they can just call me and we schedule a session. The interesting thing about what you said, Terry, is this can even help in families, and that's absolutely true, because when we bring this into organizations, they can use it as an elective employee benefit to also understand their spouses. Because as you well know, as anybody who has a thriving business knows, that what happens sometimes at home affects at work. Not sometimes, it does. And so this is really helpful in helping the employee really get and understand things. I had one gentleman, I have a Wake Up Profitable event that I do every year, and a gentleman came up after me, and he said, you know, I came here really wanting to systematize and monetize my business, understand marketing more, and I got that. But what I also got was a relationship with my wife. He said,
Wow.
this has made a huge difference. And, you know, I tell that story, but it still really touches my heart that he said that, because, you know, this is why people go into business, so they can have a lifestyle, so they can have do really great work in the world and have a life. and so this makes a profound difference in people's businesses, in their lives, in their relationships, in all areas of their life.
Huh, I can see it. Yeah, I think I definitely think you need to know, you know, it's making me think about my kids, my husband. You know, you're making us think. And a lot of times this isn't an area that we think about.
No. And sometimes you know, I've had so many times that people have said, oh my gosh, you saved my marriage. Just simply by understanding that whole dynamic of an internal thinker and an external thinker, and you know, sometimes you let things mean stuff, and it doesn't mean anything other than that's just how they're processing thought. You know, a lot of I hear from a lot of people that say, you know, I'll say something to my wife or husband, and they won't say anything at all. And I said, it could be they're just processing thought, they're processing what you're saying, and they're not going to be very quick until they've crystallized what you've said in respond to you. And when they understand this, it opens up a whole new relationship for them and less frustration, because now they get that, oh, that's just how that person is. It's nothing personal.
And it's almost always never anything personal, right? Throughout every aspect of life. But that's a great point. I'm sorry, Janet, go ahead.
No, that's okay. That's the delay thing. Both sides, can somebody have both, depending on situations, or is it just that you're hardwired one or the other?
So you're going to have different levels, right?
Okay.
And so those different levels are going to determine whether you like, want, or need that specific type of environment. So, for example, let's take an external thinker. An external thinker may like, want, or need that ability for face-to-face interaction. If they only like it, they only have they like that face-to-face interaction versus somebody who needs it, right? And so that is going to determine the amount of that face-to-face interaction they need. All right, so there's kind of levels. And can you be somewhere in the middle, right in between? Yeah, absolutely. You need time to think, or you're going to be the, that external thinker who really needs something. So again, it depends on the levels, and it depends on the other factor combinations. The one thing I mentioned earlier is about the level of autonomy, the level of communication and how you process your thought, the level of patience, and the level of information that you need. So all of those factors combined then tell an entirely different story, and really what you need to stay motivated each and every day.
Last year on May 10th, Lisa and I spoke at an event with our friend Sean DePerrin for Project Forgive, which is an excellent organization. You can find them on Facebook. But Sean puts an authentic leadership event together. And she's doing it again. I think it's May 10th or May 14th this year.
May 20th. May 20th.
And so I'm wrong twice. Perfect. So May 20th is what I meant to say. Yay, editing! Anyway, so May 20th is going to be the Authentic Leadership event. And I don't want to take up too much of your thunder here, Lisa, but I kind of want to explain what you did from a visualization standpoint. Are you okay with that?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
It's such a powerful, powerful tool. So Lisa stands up and says, okay, we're going to divide the audience into 4 sections, and it's based on these quadrants that she's talking about and how people process information. And what ends up happening is people self-identify, and they end up in 4 different corners of the auditorium. And then they have this plan of how to put together a one-day party, like a barbecue or an event or a picnic. And she doesn't really give too much explanation other than it's a celebration and you do what you want to do. And based on the type of people, because you're sitting in a group that are people that are hardwired just like you, and you come up with all your different ideas, and some of the groups are really loud and boisterous and take up most of the noise factor, and other groups are really small and efficient. Some groups create ginormous lists of all kinds of fun and exciting, awesome things to do. Other groups are creating things about safety and first aid kits and making sure they have a pavilion in case it rains. And the difference is so obvious in the types of people that there are. And what's even more obvious is how much we need each other. And it's such a great, great thing. I don't know if there's a way for people to actually witness that, if that's ever on video anywhere, Lisa. But that would be cool.
And it's going to be live streamed too. So even if they aren't, it's going to be happening in Michigan, the Authentic Leadership Day, and they could also look at it live stream because it will be live streamed through PBS.
That's right. The good people at PBS are going to live stream this. The event reached 3,000 people through live stream last year, and that was its first year. I can't even imagine how much bigger it's going to be. What she's done with that Facebook page and how much that movement has grown is just awesome. And,
it is.
And forgiveness is very powerful. So
absolutely.
Shout out to Sean.
Absolutely. And yeah, I think they can go to Shawn TV, SHAWNE TV.com /May 20th or May 20, and they'll get more information on that event.
And while you're spelling URLs, the name of your company being Accelerate Associates, but it's kind of a cute and clever play on words, right? It's not what you might think of as Accelerate.
It is. I don't know, if I could do it all over again, I don't know that I'd be that cute about it, because when you say accelerate, people think of the right way to spell it.
Right.
Not
You're
the
too
right
clever,
way to
Lisa.
And so, and having such a long one, when you spell EXCELLERATE Associates.com, it's just like, it's a little wordy, so I always recommend to be as short and sweet as possible. If you read it.
Well, you know, we all have made those kind of things, and you're kind of sometimes just stuck with it. Or you just go buy another domain and forward it to that one that's easier.
Exactly.
That's it.
That's great.
Talk to us about your book. What's in there? What will we find? What will we learn from reading that bestseller?
Great. Well, I've got several. Me, Myself, and Why: The Secrets to Navigating Change, which actually goes into the hardwiring a bit and talks more through characters in the book to really help solidify and understand and notice when you do meet somebody like that how they may be naturally hardwired. And it also walks people through how to navigate their change, how to really, really develop a life vision that no matter what happens will ground you in life and keep you moving ahead. I think this has been one of the most important foundational tools I personally have used. My life vision is a world that embraces quality, nurtures wisdom, and values integrity, a world where together we share our uniqueness to motivate others to strive for excellence while demonstrating courage, character, and balance. And for me, those are the fundamental values that I hold dear, and that really helps me to keep moving forward, even though there may be things going on and breakdowns happening all around me. That really keeps me grounded. And for many of my clients, they have found that having that sort of constitution, if you will, really helps them to live a life and live life fully that they really want to live.
Awesome.
And so that's what people get from the book.
That's a beautiful life vision. Thank you for sharing that with us.
You're welcome.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Well, and this has been a fantastic information. I think our audience will get a lot out of this, so we really appreciate you coming on, Lisa. And we will have all of your information in the show notes. Where is the best place for people to connect with you if they're want to reach out?
Great. Yeah, absolutely. They can go to accelerateassociates.com. Again, I think it's right on the screen. And
even you don't want to spell it.
Yeah, EXCELLERATE. And they can also pick up my free ebook that I have there called Get More Clients Now: 3 Steps to More Clients, More Money in a Business You Love. And that also talks about the hardwiring and the 3-step process that entrepreneurs can take to really create massive profitability and productivity in their business. It's called the Entrepreneurial Edge System, and we go through the 3 steps of mastering your inner entrepreneur, systematizing and monetizing your business, and executing your business blueprint.
Beautiful. Is there anything we didn't cover today that you'd like to share about that we didn't get to?
Oh my gosh, no. You guys have been great, and I just want to thank you so much for being on your show. It was a pleasure. You guys were wonderful hosts, and just so thankful to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. We appreciate your time, and this is show number 50. Oh, I had it in my head. Sorry, 52.
Two. It's got a 2 in it.
52. We're on 2. Show number 52, and be sure to connect with us also on our Facebook group. It's facebook.com/ this is we need a new link, but /groups / business growth time, or just search us on Facebook. And you can ask any one of us, our guests that are on the show, or us, any questions of what you've learned and what you've heard about. We appreciate your time.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.